The Hofstede framework compares culture along 5 dimensions, such as power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation. Power distance can be defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. This dimension deals with the fact that all individuals in societies are not equal. It expresses the attitude of the culture towards these inequalities amongst us. People in societies that exhibiting a large degree of power distance accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place, and which needs no further justification. On the other hand, in societies with small power distance, people strive to equalize the distribution of power, and demand justification for inequalities of power. Individualism versus collectivism can be defined as the extent to which a culture emphasizes the individual versus the group. The high side of this dimension, called individualism, that can be defined as a preference for a loosely knit social framework in which individuals are expected to take care of themselves and their immediate families only. Individualist cultures value hard work and entrepreneurial risk-taking, thereby fostering invention and innovation. On the contrary, people in collectivist cultures feel a strong association to groups, including family and work units. People in collectivist cultures tend to work toward collective, rather than personal goals, and are responsible to the group for their actions. Thus, success or failure tends to be shared among the work unit, rather than any particular individual receiving all the praise or blame. Masculinity versus femininity is a dimension that captures the extent to which a culture emphasizes personal achievement and materialism versus relationship and quality of life. The masculinity side of this dimension represents a preference in society for achievement, heroism, assertiveness, and material reward for success. Meanwhile, femininity stands for a preference for cooperation, modesty, caring for the weak, and quality of life. Uncertainty avoidance dimension expresses the degree to which the members of a society feel uncomfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity. Uncertainty avoidance has to do with the way that a society deals with the fact that the future can never be known. A culture with strong uncertainty avoidance values security and places its faith in strong systems of rules and procedures in society, and also usually has more formal rules to regulate the behavior of the employees, and more difficult to implementing change. And the opposite is weak uncertainty avoidance. Societies that exhibiting weak uncertainty avoidance maintain a more relaxed attitude and tend to be more open to change and new ideas. The long-term orientation dimension is closely related to the teachings of Confucius, and can be interpreted as dealing with society's search for virtue, the extent to which a society shows a pragmatic future-oriented perspective, rather than the conventional historical short-term point of view. In societies with a long-term orientation, people believe that truth depends very much on situation, context, and time. They show an ability to adapt traditions to changed conditions, a strong propensity to save and invest, thriftiness, and perseverance in achieving results. Societies with a short-term orientation generally have a strong concern with establishing the absolute truth. They are normative in their thinking. They exhibit great respect for traditions, a relatively small propensity to save for the future, and a focus on achieving quick results. Indonesia scores high on this dimension, which means that the following characterizes the Indonesian style. Power is centralized and managers count on the obedience of their team members. Employees expect to be told what to do and when. Control is expected and managers are respected for their position. Communication is indirect and negative feedback hidden. High power distance also means that Indonesian co-workers would expect to be clearly directed by the boss or manager. It is the classic guru-student kind of dynamic that applies to Indonesia. Indonesia is a collectivist society. This means there is a high preference for a strongly defined social framework in which individuals are expected to conform to the ideals of the society and the in-groups to which they belong. One place this is visible clearly is in the aspect of the family in the role of relationships. For example, in Indonesia, if one wishes to marry, it is important to meet a woman's family because the family is so important to her. Another example of collectivist culture of Indonesia is in the equation between child and parent. Indonesian children are committed to their parents, as are the parents committed to them all their growing lives. Their desire is to make their parents' life easier. There is a desire to take care of parents and give them support in their old age. Indonesia is considered low masculine. In Indonesia, status and visible symbols of success are important, but it is not always material gain that brings motivation. Often it is the position that a person holds which is more important to them because of an Indonesian concept, called gengsi, loosely translated to be, outward appearances. It is important that the gengsi be strongly maintained, thereby projecting a different outward appearance aimed at impressing and creating the aura of status. Indonesia has a medium-low preference for avoiding uncertainty. This means that there is a strong preference in Indonesia toward the Japanese culture of separation of internal self from external self. When a person is upset, it is habitual for the Indonesian not to show negative emotion or anger externally. They will keep smiling and be polite, no matter how angry they are inside. This also means that maintaining workplace and relationship harmony is very important in Indonesia, and no one wishes to be the transmitter of bad or negative news or feedback. Perhaps one very key phrase in Indonesia that describes how this works is "keep the boss happy." The reason is multifold. But if you extrapolate to uncertainty avoidance dimension, you can see that keeping the boss happy means you will be rewarded, and if you are rewarded you have no economic or status uncertainty as you will keep being a valuable member of the company. Generally, Indonesia tends to have long-term orientation culture rather than short-term orientation. Indonesian cultures tend to have a strong work ethics because people expect long-term rewards from today's hard work. Countries like Indonesia have a great tolerance for religious views from around the world and even among the Indonesian people themselves. Because Indonesian people embracing several different religions, such as Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism, so there is acceptance that there are many truths and often depends on the seeker. These frameworks can help companies to understand many aspects of a culture, including risk-taking, innovation, job mobility, team cooperation, pay levels, and hiring practices. An example can be seen from what has been done by McDonald's. As a fast food restaurant in the world, due to cultural differences, sometimes there should be adjustments to print the story of a unique culture in each country. Such as McDonald's in India, which does not sell burgers containing any beef or pork. Because most of India's population are Hindus, and not allowed to eat beef. While in Israel, we can still find a beef burger, but we'll never find a cheeseburger. Because cheese is a forbidden food for Jews, where most of Israel's population is Jewish. And in Indonesia, McDonald's did a variation on their menu, following the Indonesian culture. Such as by providing rice, which is the staple food of most of Indonesian people, and did not provide foods containing pork, because most of Indonesian people is Muslim, which forbids pork.
Oi, oi.